Anyways, the sages capture Ganondorf in his desert territories a short while after he flees, and my guess is this whole period happens in a matter of hours or a few days. This sets the stage for the execution flashback in Twilight Princess. However, I'd like to remind everyone of a quote the sages made regarding Ganondorf obtaining the Triforce of Power. By some divine prank, he too had been blessed with the chosen power of the gods. Now, if the goddesses were to simply hand Ganondorf a piece of the Triforce, that implies to me that it was destined for the events of Ocarina of Time to occur without Link changing the past and just to stay in the future where he belonged. Now, since in my theory he did in fact go back in time, that required the goddesses to try to replicate the history they had planned by giving Ganondorf, the Triforce of Power's destined wielder, his piece immediately. Now, since he couldn't hold the entire Triforce due to the imbalance of his soul, which we already knew about, the remaining pieces naturally do flee to Link and Zelda as had originally been intended. This is all happening while Zelda is still in hiding, just to clarify. Now, I'd like to remind everyone that in this flashback there are only 6 sages, and every other group of sages has had a magic number of 7. Even the group of the future is later joined by Princess Zelda, and it does form 7 sages, and this also translates into 7 wise men. Well, this group, while it seems to have similarities to the previous group with their medallion symbols, light, fire, and etc., etc., it doesn't seem to be the same group because it's an ethereal-like entity that is a sage, rather than the friends that Link had made over the journey. Now, before you say that this theory of mine, with the entirety of the quest having been planned by the gods, is entirely circumstantial with no groundbreaking evidence to support it, I challenge you to remember the man in the windmill. Remember that he had already gone mad from the Song of Storms screwing up his windmill despite it not having happened in the game yet. Remember how Nabooru had already been taken and brainwashed by Twinrova despite Link not having met her until late in the story. This implies to me that the entirety of the quest was destined to happen so that the gods would never have to intervene. However, when Link returns to the past and never draws the Master Sword, this causes an imbalance that inevitably forces the gods on 2 occasions to intervene to prevent this imbalance. Firstly, on the left fork, Ganondorf is blessed with the Triforce of Power, and because of the imbalance in his heart, the Triforces of Courage and Wisdom go to Link and Zelda as destined, and thus live on through their descendants. This explains how Link and Zelda meet in the final scene of Ocarina of Time, and why his Triforce of Courage resonates visibly, which it only does in a situation where it encounters another fragment of the Triforce. After Ganondorf is sealed away, news of the ceased threat spreads, and Zelda does inevitably return to the castle. Several folks have already mentioned that this is not the same meeting as when they first meet, as the Door of Time would have been closed on Link. And this helps prove my theory even further because of this. Meanwhile, on the right side of the fork, Link and Zelda decide that it's best for Link to return to his childhood, and the gods obviously hadn't anticipated this because when Ganondorf returned, no hero came to oppose him. This caused their involvement with the right side of the timeline fork by having to flood the land to keep Ganondorf's evil contained until a new hero could finally finish what the Hero of Time had started. Now, all I'm going to finish with is this. My only intention in this video was to validate my reasoning on why I think the split time theory is more practical than a linear. Granted, just like with a linear timeline theory, there is some degree of speculation involved, but in my opinion, the dots had been visible. All I needed to do was connect them. Now, this is the final timeline theory I'm going to propose in the foreseeable future. Notice, all you see are Ocarina of Time, then forking to Twilight Princess on the left, and then Wind Waker on the right. That's because that's the only theory I wish to establish anymore. Whichever titles you have above Ocarina or below the 2 split games is all up to perception. However, Since looking over the cutscenes and evidence presented in these games, these 3 games, I'm nearly positive they take place in this manner. Now, I'm happy to say that I've had fun making all these videos, and after the work shown by Tredge 2097 and PG Prod to validate a linear timeline theory, I felt I had to do my part to form a working split theory. Whether mine's the best or the worst doesn't concern me. That's all up to you, all of you. Now, while I'd like to be done here, if Tredge, PG Prod, or anyone else have anything to say that might require even more effort out of me, I welcome it. But until then, I'm finished with the Zelda timeline. Until then, have fun theorizing and making videos, and take Tredge and PG Prod as an example to not simply stick with a theory because it's easy or convenient. Use intellect and thought to really work and form one of your own that makes sense to you. A series this great really does deserve the effort of all of us to solve, and in the end, that's why we all do it. Throughout all these videos, this has been Lancun. Now, with this, I'll talk to you later, everybody.